So the Torgue DLC was probably the funniest of the campaign DLCs simply because of Mr. Torgue. And while Mr. Torgue is not quite as popular as Claptrap or Tiny Tina, he did become a fan favorite, and I'm glad that he got his own DLC. However, while the Torgue DLC doesn't have a massive surplus of amazingly powerful or awesome weapons, the Torgue DLC does have its fair share of high quality gear and weapons that are definitely worth acquiring depending on your playstyle. Before we start, I'm mostly going to be going over weapons that are unique to this particular DLC, and while the Torgue DLC is also a great place for obtaining powerful vanilla game weapons like either the Flacker or Unkempt Herald, those weapons won't be included in this list because they don't require the Torgue DLC. Also, this list contains guns and weapons that I would consider to be really good, so if you don't see your favorite item, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, it just simply means that I didn't include it on the list. But I guess without further ado, these will be the top 7 best guns and weapons from Mr. Torgue's Campaign of Carnage DLC, starting now. Number 7. The Big Boom Blaster Shield. So, while this isn't technically a weapon per se, the Big Boom Blaster is actually a pretty nice shield, and along with the Hoplite, it is arguably one of the better Seraph shields from the Torgue DLC. Though, I suppose the Punchy and Sponge shields weren't particularly impressive in the first place. Now, the reason I included the Big Boom Blaster on this list is because the boosters it drops can be picked up by the player to not only restore the shield, but also to receive both 1 grenade and 1 rocket launcher ammo. And as you can imagine, the Big Boom Blaster has amazing synergy with both grenades and rocket launchers because you can restore your ammo for these weapons by simply just getting hurt and picking up those boosters. And while pretty much all grenades are improved by the Big Boom Blaster, I would say that the Big Boom Blaster works amazingly well with rocket launchers that have low ammo consumption per shot. As an example, something like the Bada Boom works well because it deals a crap ton of damage per rocket fired. And you may also like using the Big Boom Blaster with the Vladov Topnia, which provides some of the same attributes as the Norfleet, but with far lower ammo consumption, especially when you consider that Vladov launchers can fire without consuming ammo. Now, to get this shield, you will have to kill Pyropete the Invincible. However, there's a good chance that you're already farming Pyropete for legendaries, so you should pick one of these up when you see it. The most ideal Big Boom Blaster is one that has a 22.1% chance of boosters being deployed, so keep an eye out for that version, or the highest percentage version that you can get. Number 6. The Kobra Sniper Rifle. So I debated including this gun on the list. The Kobra is by no means a bad weapon, but I do think it's not really as good as it should be for as rare as it is. And while the drop rate of the Kobra has been improved since the Torgue DLC's launch, if you want to attempt to get one of these, it should drop from Pete's burner enemies. So I guess if you want one, you're just going to have to go to the beatdown and get lucky. The reason the Kobra is actually pretty good and is pretty cool is because it's an explosive sniper rifle that deals a decent amount of splash damage and has a fairly good splash radius as well. And for this reason, I think it's actually a fairly good sniper rifle for Maya once it's been paired with her Converge, Ruin, and Subsequence skills. With this skill setup, you should be able to phase lock an enemy, kill that same enemy with a headshot from the Kobra, subsequently damaging the enemies that got pulled in with Converge, and then allow the Subsequence to phase lock another enemy so you can repeat this again until your phase lock runs out. I think if you use the Kobra that way, I think you'll find that it works fairly well. Otherwise, I really can't recommend the Kobra for somebody like Zero. While he can deal a lot of damage with it, I think you're going to find that you prefer other sniper rifles with higher fire rate. But assuming you can get a Kobra, I think the Kobra is actually pretty nice on Maya. Number 5. The Pocket Rocket Pistol. So, the Pocket Rocket is a fairly decent pistol that's ultimately overshadowed by the far superior legendary Unkempt Herald. And if you ask me, that's kind of a shame, because the Pocket Rocket is actually a pretty awesome Torgue pistol to use on Salvador for leveling purposes. Especially since the Pocket Rocket on average goes for about maybe 50 Torgue tokens or so. Now, if I had to describe this gun, it's basically a souped up version of the generic Torgue slapper pistol with better base damage. But in comparison, I would say that the major advantage of the pocket rocket is that it's a lot easier to reliably get, since you can get a pocket rocket from Torgue's vending machines. And like some of the other weapons that you can get from the Seraph vendors, it's far easier to get a double penetrating pocket rocket than it is to get a double penetrating slapper. Otherwise, there's not really a whole lot else to these particular pistols, but if you're looking for a good explosive pistol until you can get that double penetrating unkempt herald, you should definitely get yourself a pocket rocket. Number 4, the O- grenade mod. So the O- is the Seraph's sister grenade to the legendary leech grenade from the vanilla game. At first glance, both of these items appear to be fairly similar. It's just that there are some pretty big differences. As for the O-, it deals more damage, but deploys these homing projectiles that seek out targets, and the actual healing is done via these healing orbs that have to travel to the player in order to heal them. The leech, on the other hand, deals less damage, but upon the explosion of those child grenades that also seek out enemies, the player is instantly healed. And while this may sound confusing, an easy way to tell if someone is using the leech or the O- is if you see those healing orbs or not. The O- will always deploy healing orbs, while the leech never does. Between the two, I think the O- is better simply for the fact that it can come in slag, while the leech is limited to just fire, shock, and corrosive elements in Borderlands 2. If you want this grenade mod, it should drop from Pyro-Pete like the Big Boom Blaster Shield does. Just try to get one with as low of a fuse time as possible, and according to the Borderlands wiki, the minimum fuse time for the O- is 0.1 seconds, and while this isn't the ideal fuse time, it's still really good. Number 3, the Meteor Shower grenade mod. So one of everyone's favorite grenade mods early on is the bonus package, because it's basically a Merv grenade on steroids. Instead of the child grenade just exploding once, the bonus packages can explode again, dealing further damage to enemies. However, the problem with the bonus package is that it's sort of a pain in the butt to get. After all, the player has to repeatedly farm Boom Boom over and over again, and that can take a fairly long time. This is where the Meteor Shower comes in. Basically, the Meteor Shower and bonus package are identical, except for the fact that the Meteor Shower has an additional 1 or 2 child grenades on average and deploys over a much larger radius. So, depending on how you look at it, the Meteor Shower is actually a little bit stronger than the bonus package is. Perhaps the best part, though, is that the Meteor Shower can simply be purchased with Seraph crystals, and while I suppose you would have to still farm for 150 or so individual crystals, the nice thing about farming for crystals is that you can farm for other legendaries and pearlescent items while you're farming for those crystals. Plus, since you're just buying the Meteor Shower from a Seraph vendor, you can simply save and quit until you can get one with both the appropriate fuse time, deployment method, and child grenade count that you want. So again, if you want the Meteor Shower, just check the Seraph vendor from the Torgue's Campaign of Carnage DLC. Number 2, the Slowhand Shotgun. Unlike most other E-Tech shotguns, which generally kind of suck, the Slowhand is actually pretty awesome. And this is because it can both heal the player for a portion of damage dealt, and unlike most E-Tech shotguns, which fire in an arc, the Slowhand's grenade projectile fires in a perfectly straight line, giving the Slowhand improved range and accuracy. This is an interesting case because the Slowhand is arguably leaps and bounds beyond your standard E-Tech shotguns. In fact, in some ways, I'm surprised that the Slowhand never ended up becoming a legendary, because I do feel that it truly is that much better than its non-unique counterparts. The Slowhand does have some issues though, and in my experience, the Slowhand blows through ammo in a magazine fairly quickly, requiring the player to reload in order to continue firing. However, the reload speed on the Slowhand is kinda low, meaning that you may sometimes find that you're spending more time reloading the Slowhand than actually shooting it. Thankfully, certain characters like Krieg or Salvador can counteract this with some of their skills. For Salvador, he has so much ammo regeneration, and his abilities that allow him to fire shots that don't consume ammo basically allow him to bypass a lot of these problems. You will still have long reload times, but it's not that big of a deal. As for Krieg, Krieg has skills in the Bloodlust tree that can greatly expand magazine size, and he also has some skills that boost reload speed. So basically, you're going to be able to fire longer, and it's going to take a lot less time to actually reload the Slowhand. If you plan on using this weapon, I would recommend playing as either of these two characters, or the reloads may end up frustrating you. But to acquire the Slowhand, you will need to kill either Piston or Badassosaurus Rex. Number 1. The Kitten Assault Rifle. So the Kitten might just be one of, if not the best weapon in the entire Torgue's Campaign of Carnage DLC. In fact, the Kitten is definitely up there when it comes to this game's best assault rifles for a couple of reasons. The first major thing that the Kitten has going for it is the fact that the Kitten fires multiple projectiles per shot at the cost of just one bullet. And while it's true that these projectiles aren't very accurate, especially at longer ranges, the Kitten is a nice weapon to get up close and spray enemies with. Now, the second thing is that the Kitten is a moxie weapon and heals the player for a portion of damage dealt. So not only does the Kitten fire multiple projectiles per shot, but you can heal off of the projectiles that are being fired as well. And sort of like the Grog nozzle, this effect is passive, so you could feasibly heal off of damage dealt with grenades as well. The final thing is just how easy it is to get the Kitten. All you have to do is start and complete a side quest called Everyone Wants to Be Wanted. Now, this side quest basically just involves the player running to various locations in the Southern Raceway to place 4 posters for each of the vanilla Vault Hunters. So there's no reason you shouldn't do that quest. My only complaint, or the one thing that would make the Kitten a better weapon, is if it dealt splash damage, and that lack of splash damage can be problematic sometimes. But otherwise, the Kitten is an excellent assault rifle. But alright guys, I think that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a like, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.